All right. Well, welcome. This is Collin and
Stephanie.
we're here today to talk about various things with no plan. We're just letting it flow today. We did decide before we turned the cameras on that we're going to talk about the law of attraction and the art of allowing, especially, which is your specialty.
Art of allowing, yes.
Should we talk about who we are and what we do?
Sure.
You want to start?
My name's Stephanie Orlina. I own Power and Joy, and I am a transformational life coach. And I teach people the art of allowing, and so I help them shift from negative thinking, and it transforms their lives, as my good friend knows.
Yes, and I've been a client of yours. So my name's Collin. I'm a medium tarot oracle card reader, and kind of an informal coach. I don't charge anybody right now, but I sort of coach people when the opportunity is there. So we wanted to talk about the art of allowing specifically, and I actually threw it in there by accident just now, but what came to me is looking at the word opportunity in terms of the law of attraction, art of allowing. So if people don't know what the law of attraction and art of allowing is, we'll probably explain it over the course of things. But in terms of opportunity, what comes to mind for me is that I think one of my challenges in trying to live my life in a more aligned way, aligned with however you want to call it, spirit, source, higher power, whatever, is that sometimes I default to like a position that's sort of dominated by my ego, and I try to control things.
Yeah.
And when
I can relate.
I think a lot of people can.
Yeah.
And when I'm in that mode and I think about opportunity, it's an uncomfortable feeling that I get, because it ends up being that I put a lot of pressure on myself to sort of almost take the job away from the universe or source or spirit and create both the opportunity all by myself without any help from anyone or anything, and then follow through on the opportunity all by myself and create the results that I desire according to my timeline, my wishes, and being able to feel in control the entire time, almost being able to feel like I am God,
Yeah. How's that working
that I think
for you?
about it. Yeah. not well.
Yeah.
But not that I think about it in those terms. I don't have some sort of megalomaniacal monologue of like, I'm God or whatever. I'm not doing any sort of Kanye West impression in my head, but that is sort of the practical on the ground reality of what ends up happening. Is like I get frustrated because if I don't create the opportunity, I feel like I need exactly the way that I wanted it.
Well, and that goes into the whole thinking of, we think we're in control and that we have to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that if I don't, then it's not going to happen.
Right.
And our society feeds us into, got to make it happen. What are you doing? Got to work hard, sacrifice, suffer. Right. And it's like, man, we just have it asked backwards. That's just not how it is. And unfortunately, most of us were never told how to, let's call it how to play the game of life and win. How to play the game of life and win. So, and that's what I help people do, is just shift that thinking. Because
so
the way we're working, it's not working, right?
Right. So what I was going to ask is for you to explain your understanding of how does it work? When it's working well, how does it work?
Well, I think it even goes back to even steps before that, like so what I'm starting to really get for me, and it always, like, what I teach my clients, I usually do first, and then what works, and then I share that with others. And so what I'm coming to understand is when we ask, it is given. And And in that moment of asking, all the opportunities, it's like if we were going to bake a cake, I say, I want a chocolate cake, Collin. In that moment, the universe gathers all the ingredients and it's there. It makes the cake, it's ready for us. But we don't know that. And so we think we have to do this, this, and this. And it's not about that. It's just about getting aligned with it. You talked about that earlier, about getting in alignment with it. And the way we get into alignment with it is by feeling good, by practicing self-care, by feeling appreciation, by doing things we love. You know, there's all these different, and that's the art of allowing, is getting into the flow of it, feeling good. That's the art of allowing. Like law of attraction is responding to us all the time. That's just there, like gravity. We don't make gravity work. We don't make law of attraction work. It just is. What we want to do is get into the art of allowing. And so what I've been doing lately is just reminding myself, like, oh, Steph, it's already done. You don't have to do anything. When you talked about opportunity, I was thinking, like, what is that? It's like, I think it's more about creating a platform opportunity by being in the flow, by feeling good, by appreciating, by all these different tools that we can use. So that's kind of, I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that was a great explanation. Thank you. I think because I may have heard of the law of attraction before I watched the movie The Secret, but I remember watching The Secret for the first time being my big aha moment about finally understanding like what law of attraction really meant. But then I had an issue with it that I think a lot of people bump into, which is, and I don't think I've now watched The Secret many times over. And I think there are sections in there where the people that are speaking about it, the experts sort of, actually do sort of speak to the art of allowing. Like they talk about how important gratitude is. And I think that's part of like, I think there are multiple people who mention like, in order to make it easier for you to attract what you want into your life, like you need to be in a space of gratitude for what you have now today.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of creates this sort of, puts you in a flow state. I'm not sure they use that language, but they do. I remember they do say something about how that's part of this sort of cycle, is like you receive something that you want, you express gratitude for it in the present, and that sort of puts you in this place where you're going to sort of keep the flow in the future. Like you will continue to get things that you want because you're feeling gratitude. But I think it's a bigger deal than that, because at least for me it was, because the problem I ran into after I saw The Secret and sort of learned like, okay, this by itself is how law of attraction works. Then it sort of put me in the trap of like, oh, so I am in control. It's just that I'm not in control with my human behavior. I'm in control because now I know how to use law of attraction, and now I can control things because this is how it works. Mm. And that sort of didn't work for me very well, because I think it's like my ego snuck back in the back door of that thinking and kind of polluted it, so that, I would try to think like in The Secret, there's one part where they're, as an example, like you're trying to manifest a new car that you want. And so in that using that example, like I would say, oh, I've got to attract this car that I want. And so I would spend time visualizing, the practical exercises that they give you in that film, like visualizing, feeling like I'm really in the car, visualizing the color, taking a picture of it or getting one off the internet, putting it on my computer screen or on my wall where I see it all the time, all that kind of stuff. But then what would almost immediately happen is if whatever time frame passed where I got impatient with it, I would hit a point where I start saying, well, why isn't the car here yet?
Yeah.
And that's where I revert back to this weird sort of mistranslation of what's in The Secret, thinking like, oh, I'm the one that controls the whole process. Yeah. And I think it's in The Secret, but it just isn't. I think The Secret does a great job of like a big introduction to the law of attraction. If somebody doesn't know what it is at all, I would highly recommend it as a starting point. But I think you need to, if you have control issues like I do, there's a second level, and it was so helpful, which I got from you, but also from Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks.
Yeah.
And because
Abraham.
she is the, or they, she is, are the ones that talk about the art of allowing.
Awesome.
And that word allow is really helpful for me. I think so much of my beliefs and results come from the language that I use, sometimes just in my mind, not even necessarily, out loud.
Mm-hmm.
But the word allow helped me a lot, because then it was like, oh, it doesn't make any sense for me to notice that the car I want isn't here and then get frustrated.
No,
Because that's like getting into
resistance.
resistance. That's
Yeah,
getting into a negative space.
Yeah.
And what I've
Can't
now
get
learned,
there from there.
yeah, what I've now learned is that actually is almost telling the universe, like, I'm not ready for this car yet. So put the delivery date out in the future.
Come here.
Yeah.
Come here.
I really want this car, but why isn't when I say I really want this car, the universe is like, okay, here's the car. And then when I say, oh, but I'm angry that the car's not here, the universe's response is like, they just it's matching the energy of that, which is I'm giving energy to the car not being here. So the universe is like, oh, you want the car to not be here for some more.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll delay it.
And I really appreciate Rhonda Burns for creating The Secret, because for me, that was the first time I ever even heard of this information. And luckily a friend, Abraham Hicks, is in the first cut. And then they had a difference of opinions and took Abraham out, which is Esther channeling Abraham. And thankfully I have that first copy of them in it, because it was their work. Then I followed their work, and their work helped transform my life. Like, I was already into personal growth and self-help for decades, and then was introduced to them and started listening to them. And I was kind of like what you're saying. Like, I would listen to it and try it. Oh, it doesn't work. And I'd put it down, but then that didn't work. And I'd listen to it again. And so I was kind of like back and forth. And then I had this experience where I was a personal assistant at the time. And I had this customer who was an asshole, plain and simple. And it was really torture to work for him, but I didn't want to let go of the business. And so I was like, what can I do? And so I started listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and I would do what they said, feel good. So I'd listen to music on the way over. I'd listen to the music, to their teachings on the way over, and doing this every day. And then I finally got to this point, by listening to their work and practicing their principles, I just started feeling better internally. Like, it was like, it helped me build this foundation internally. And so I'd go to work and I'd be like, I don't care what he's like. I'm just going to do my work. And, and this went on for a few months. And then I remember we were out on his balcony one day and we were chatting, because we had moments where we just clicked, and he was a great guy and we would chat. And I remember thinking to myself, when this whole thing happens, I'm never going to tell him that he was the one that helped me get to this point of being able to create this, strength within myself because of how he had been. And he asked me one day, because we were talking, and he goes, so how did you grow this like inner strength? And I go, and I had this moment, I was like, uh-oh. And I was like, okay, I'm going to say it. I'm like, well, it's because of you. You were such an asshole. And he, and he goes, yeah, I've been told that before.
Points for honesty.
Yeah. And so it was, and I look back on that now. I was over in that area the other day, and I thought, because at the time I wanted to coach people and I wasn't. And then years later, I was in this neighborhood the other day, and I was thinking back at that time going, wow, look how far I'm actually where I want to be. And that's the thing, is like, we get what we want, but then we want more, and it's a never ending. We're always evolving. And I think that's the other thing, is like, we can have what we want, but we're never going to be satisfied, because I love Abraham's things of feeling appreciation for what is and eagerness for what is coming. Because we're never going to be like, I'm good. It's not part of us being spiritual, evolving people and humans.
So I want to talk about, so when we go back to the word opportunity, I think what I've come to understand is that my best relationship with opportunities is not the kind of thing that gets in a, like, especially like in American capitalist society, it gets pounded a lot of like, you have to go out and make your own opportunities. Like you have to go out and knock on those doors and you have to do really hard work. And I'm not saying that knocking on doors is not required. Hard work is not required. But that kind of idea that it's all up to you and you have no help is not, that's no longer my relationship with that word opportunity. My relationship with the word opportunity is my job as a manifester or whatever is to get into a place where I feel good, where I feel where when I'm feeling good, I'm visualizing and putting my attention on the things that I want at some sort of reasonable intervals, you know, whether that's every morning or, you know, if something new comes up, maybe it is like every day at this time for a week or something like that. So I don't feel anymore like it's my job to go create the opportunities. It's my job to sort of get in alignment, and that's going to create opportunities because the opportunities are going to be presented from the universe if I'm open to them.
Yeah.
But my
Inspiration.
but so my question is, because this is where I really get tangled up, is when the opportunity comes, what role does my action play in what comes next? So if I've been in a place of alignment, I'm feeling good, and I've been putting my attention on this car that I want, and then a situation comes up, like let's say the car is, you know, $40,000 and I don't have anything reasonably like that in the bank. Do I have a, you know, should I be looking for signs? Should I be looking for the opportunity? And then if the opportunity comes, like maybe somebody says like, hey, my uncle's getting rid of a car and he doesn't even want to sell it. He just wants to give it away. You know, what's my role? Like what role does my action play when the opportunity comes?
Well, I think again, it's like backing up a little bit. And you said something about opportunity and creating opportunity. And I love that. Because it goes back to, you know, it's when we ask, it's given, right? And so we want to get alignment into it. And the way we get into alignment is to practice the art of allowing, which is to appreciate, to take good care of ourselves, to enjoy ourselves, to do those things we love. And what I have found is when I'm in those places as much as I can, and I'm not, sometimes I'm grouchy, sometimes I don't feel good and I need to take care of myself. But doing that every morning, like you said, doing those self-care things that, you know, meditation and physical exercise, and then focusing a little bit of attention on what it is we want and appreciating what we have, circumstances and events occur, and things happen in ways we never would have imagined. And when I feel, because you said the word inspiration or something, and I remember Dr. Wayne Dyer saying inspiration is in spirit. When we're inspired, we're in spirit. It's like God, higher power, whatever you want to call it, inspires us. And so then we take action, and that action leads to another action, and then circumstances and event. And I always like to call it the story, because we don't know how things are going to play out until after. Like I always like to say, like I use the word God, but you know, whatever word fits for you. God's the best choreographer. The universe is so efficient. It will bring about so many things we want into one beautiful experience. And we don't know until it happens. Like God's the best story writer, and then I'm the storyteller because I tell from the experience that I had. Mm-hmm. And so I think it gets into a little bit of the control of kind of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we don't know. It's more about putting ourselves in a place where we can allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. And then we'll experience the unfolding of it. So if I feel inspired to do something, you couldn't stop me from doing it, but it feels right. I think it comes back to, how does it feel? If it feels like I'm forcing it, I would pause and pray.
I think that's the thing where I get tangled up, and I think some other people get tangled up. So for me, sometimes the process has two sort of checkpoints, and I can sort of fall down at either one. One is recognizing when the universe or spirit presents me the right opportunity. Like sometimes I won't see it, or sometimes I'll be so stuck in I think this is more common actually. I'm so stuck in my concept of how I think it should happen, that I miss, like in the car, not to beat this car example to death, but if I'm convinced that somehow I have to buy the car myself, like I have to come up with exactly $42,999, and I have to go to the dealership where I live and give them that, transfer that money from the bank. And, that's how I get the car. What I've done there, just by having that expectation, if I'm really attached to it, I've eliminated a whole bunch of opportunities that the universe.
A ton.
Exactly. But I mean, honestly, that's like in sort of the practical real world that we live in, like that's
the
normal
that's
people
the problem. That's the problem, because we have not been taught at a very young age how the game of life works and how to play it. We were not shown the rules. We're living life as a game. And here we're playing this game I'm 56. How old are you?
50.
Yeah, I've been playing this game for 56 years. It's only been in the last 12, and I'm still evolving and growing and learning how to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a lot of things I wanted just by default.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's tricky because now I know and so I'm still like, what I keep hearing is control and expectation, in a way of like, it's either this way or it can't be. And I think one of the things for us, especially, the older we are, because we're so set in our ways of thinking and being, is to let go. Learn to trust. And one of the ways that I've learned to do that is by meditation. Meditation's awesome. If no one's doing it, even if it's a minute a day, I always tell people the only way you can do meditation wrong is to not do it. Period. Any way you do. And then something that I've come to do for years now is I say, and you can say, spirit, if this is in my highest good to do, fill in the blank, ... make the desire stronger. And if this isn't in my highest good to do, ... lessen the desire to do so. And I let it go. And what I've come to find by practicing this is that sometimes I'll know instantaneously. And other times, if I don't ever think about it again, like spirit doesn't want me to do it.
So I think that's what's important for me in terms of, I talked about the first checkpoint which is the opportunity itself. So part of it is just not trying to determine that. And when you say let go, it's let go of like how, for me, it's like let go of the how. Mike Dooley, one of the guys in The Secret, says let go of the like the infernal how.
The universe.
The second checkpoint is when I am actually called to take action, to partner with the universe or whatever in creating this thing that I want. And I either miss that, like I don't perceive that, that's where I should have done that's where there was a natural spot for me to do it.
What like give some examples, because
well, just to stick with the basic example of the car, because I dragged it through this entire thing. Like let's say I'm convinced in the first part that, I have to buy the car and I have to have the exact, price and all that sort of stuff. Then I'm trying to think of like the best way to think about it, but I might have a friend and I go hang out with a friend, and the friend says something like, man, it's so weird. My uncle's just giving away a car. Like he doesn't even want money for it. Like he's kind of crazy like that. Like he's got plenty of money. So he just like every now and then he just wants to give away a car, and he's like giving away to family, but he's also giving away to like strangers. It's really weird. Like, I think like the opportunity to act there, if I was in alignment, would be, what kind of car is it? But if I've locked myself in originally that I have to go buy the car I want, I might have a thought of something that's like, well, the odds of that car that your uncle's giving away being the exact car I want are low. So I'm not even gonna like, let's just change the subject.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you went in a whole different direction because I thought you were going to talk
Okay.
about the money, and instead you were just
Oh,
like someone's giving away, and I'd be like, oh wow, what kind of car? They're giving it away. I'd be like, because that's rare and unusual. So I would be like, you were in alignment and had
well,
even
what I
had
was trying to, yeah, no, I know. I don't know if that's the best example. What I'm trying to demonstrate there though, is that if I'm stuck in this,
yeah,
I'm
gotcha.
controlling
Way of
everything.
thinking, this box thinking.
Exactly. It becomes a
Yeah,
filter. So I don't
yeah,
see or hear,
yeah.
like I could imagine myself hearing that, but not putting it together, you know?
And I think that's where the coaching comes in,
Mhm,
is just like, we meet week to week and we just kind of redirect, redirect,
mhm.
redirect, redirect. That's why I like working with people for 6 months, because it's not something we can do like just like here and talking. It's not going to land for the rest of the
So you
duration.
think that's an area where like somebody like me, if I was thinking that way, it's not just like, oh, do this. It's a mindset. I mean, I think this is what I got from you is that it's not about having some sort of laser, some skill of laser being able to see, like exactly what the universe is doing. It's more of like just avoiding that control mindset, avoiding that ego control mindset, feeling good and feeling in a place of letting go so that you're kind of just open to whatever. So that when you get that opportunity, uh, you're just naturally curious instead of rigid and sort of blocking things out. So
It
you don't
it's
even know that you need to ask that question, but you do because you're in a good place.
Well, I think it goes even further than that. It's like you said it earlier with co-creating, and the way we do that is by creating a relationship. And how do we create a relationship is by spending time.
Relationship
A power greater than ourselves, the
with spirit or
universe,
universe. Okay.
spirit, whatever you want to call it. And it's about
Mhm.
creating that relationship so that when when those opportunities come up, I think it's what keeps coming back to me is feeling. How does it feel? If it's like, but it's gotta happen this way, and I got it, and
Mhm.
this is the only way. But if it's like building a inner foundation of trust,
Mhm.
like, and belief
Mhm.
that I'm not alone, I'm not doing this by myself. I never actually have been and never will be. That
Mhm.
there's lots of things that are working on my behalf. Um, so it's that laying that foundation of like,
Mhm.
taking good care of myself, meditating, enjoying myself, and and how I feel, because
Mhm.
then it's like checking in. How does this feel?
Mhm.
And then also, if we're like hanging out and I'm and not to say that I'm feeling great all the time, but if I'm in that space of creating a relationship with higher power, and there's something that happens in all using all the tools of the art of allowing, that then I'm hanging out with a friend, and this conversation comes up, and then I'm like, really? Oh, that's interesting. Well, what kind of car is it? Really? They're giving it away? Like,
Mhm.
I want to find out more.
Mhm.
And then either is or it isn't,
Mhm.
but knowing
But
like,
that's the line I'm sort of drawing there is I think there's part to it where you have moments where you need to make a decision or something. And in that sense, I understand that I have control. The thing I have control over there is I can control my attitude, how I feel, whatever. So
mhm,
if I can't think of an example with the car thing, but just
yeah,
like in those moments where it's like clear that I have the choice to either be rigid, like you're saying, or open, then I understand like meditation. Hopefully, I'm benefiting from your coaching, you know. And so I make the conscious decision to like let go, to relax, to feel good, so that I allow the universe to bring whatever it's supposed to bring. But the moment that I sort of outlines of my friend with the uncle, I kind of have to be in that feeling state. And you can correct me if I'm off on this, but my understanding is I need to be in like a relaxed state before I go hang out with my friend. Like I won't have the moment right? Does
Well,
that make
that's what I was gonna say is like, I think that moment is a is a direct result of the art of allowing.
it goes off what the work that you've already, so if you've been
Because
practicing
you would,
meditation and
yeah.
practicing letting go, that will happen. And if I'm not practicing that and I'm in this sort of energy anyway, either I'm not hanging out with that friend that day,
Yeah, exactly.
or the friend or the
Doesn't
uncle
even bring it up.
doesn't even bring it up. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because we're
Bring
not
it up too.
energetic. It's all energy.
Right.
Everything's energy. Like,
Yeah.
people say it's not energy, but you know what? Two people walk in the room and one's pissed off and
Mhm.
angry. We can feel the energy. We can
It's
see
true.
the energy. Someone walks in and they're just happy to be there and happy to see you. We can feel the energy and see the energy. Everything is energy. And so that's what we're talking about. Since everything's energy, is like, what am I doing to help my energy feel
Mhm.
better, to be better? Because that's what the law of attract, like attracts like, birds of a feather flock together.
Mhm.
um that's what it's all about. We just want to, um I want to do my best in any given moment, um to help myself feel a little bit better, because
Mhm.
when I do, it's like it's pre-paving for a future moment. And
Mhm.
not only that, it's like in the moment. That's why I want anything, because I want to feel good. I
Mhm.
want that new car, or I want that LS 460 white with the silver trim.
Mhm.
It's not a car I want. um, because I think it would feel marvelous to drive it.
Mhm.
Because when I look at it, it makes my heart sing, and it
Mhm.
just conjures lots of good feelings. Um,
So you feel like, because one thing I was going to ask you is, you decided to name your coaching business Power and Joy. And my question was going to be, I think you've kind of answered it, but I'll let you answer it some more if you want. Um, why did you call it Power and Joy instead of Power in Allowing?
because there is so much power in joy.
So it's like joy is like the most powerful form of allowing, essentially. Because if you're feeling joy, then you will be in a state of allowing. It's really hard to be like happy and feeling good about your life and in a place of resistance. Like those two
If
things
they
are like
don't,
dark and
yeah,
light.
they're
You can't
like
just,
they just
yeah,
won't. Yeah, they're
yeah,
opposite magnets.
yeah.
Um,
I think the reason, sorry to jump in, but I think the
mhm.
reason that's so super helpful for me at least, and I think some other people would find it helpful too, is because the whole thing of like, you have to get into alignment with spirit or the universe and you have to meditate and all that sort of stuff. Like, I agree that's all factually true, but that stuff sort of, I've struggled to meditate. Sometimes I still do. It doesn't come natural or easy for me. Um, some people have very different concepts of, or their understanding of, like, do I believe in a higher power, or do I believe in the universe, what does it look like, whatever. So, but for me, what was helpful for coaching with you is that even though I had those issues, your solution was just get happy, just get naturally happy, but do things to put yourself in as happy a state as you can. And that will be this law of attraction thing. You don't have to do all these different things.
Well, even, and some people may be thinking like, how do I get happy? I don't know how to do that. Or joy,
Right.
like what? It's such a foreign concept because so many of us are walking around like disappointed, angry, hurt, wounded,
Mhm.
whatever it may be. And so joy and happy are just like, what the is that? Like, I don't even know. Like, or I don't want to be walking around all like, and but I always like to tell, what did you like to do when you were a kid? You know, look at kids. They're crying one minute, laughing the next. It's like,
I've been amazed actually recently in my conversations with people of how that is like the touchstone question. It's like almost everybody who has some degree of unhappiness. I feel like I'm making a very bold statement here, but it seems to be true. Almost everyone walking around with some level of unhappiness. If you ask them, is there something you did as a kid that you, or you, I ask it in two parts. What was your favorite thing to do when you were a kid?
yeah,
And they
yeah.
tell you,
Hmm.
and then I ask, when's the last time you did that? And it's always like
When I
decades.
was 10.
Like depending on their age, it's like
Yeah.
forever ago.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask like, why did you stop? And quite often it's like, they can't really identify it. It's something like, I don't know, I grew up, like we moved away from the lake. So swimming was harder or whatever, but there's never like, it's very, I shouldn't say never, but it's very rare that somebody has like a legit, like sort of justifiable answer as to the reason why they let go of that thing. It really was just a thing of like, either they just fell out of the habit or there was some sort of environmental change or something, like they moved to another town or whatever. But it was really like, I can always hear that it's like that. And this is true for me too. I'm not just saying about other people. The reality of it is I stopped putting attention on that activity. Like almost every time I've ever heard responses to that question, it's never like, like let's just say somebody loved playing the violin when they were a little kid. And the answer is almost never like, both my arms were removed in a horrible accident,
Yeah.
It's literally
Something
just like,
drastic.
and sometimes if you ask them, they still have the violin like in their actual apartment, like they've carried it around, but they never, like when they move, they take it with them, but it's in a box and it's buried or whatever. I shouldn't have used the violin example because I actually talked to one person who actually did injure their neck. And that was the reason.
Okay. So anyone watching and listening to this at this point, if you take nothing else from this, but if you think about what you loved to do when you were a kid, and if you haven't done it recently, go do it, whatever it may be. You will be ahead of the game by a zillion points, because one, it's gonna spark those memories of what it was like when you did it. Two, if you still have to do it, it's gonna feel good. And three, you'll be in doing the art of allowing. So yeah, it's a win-win across the board. And that's what I don't know if there's ever been a client where I haven't asked that question. It's like, what did you like to do? Because a lot of times we grow up, kids, I always think the best time of life is in kindergarten, and not kindergarten nowadays, but kindergarten in the 70s and 80s, where you still got to take a nap, have a snack, do art, play on the playground, listen to music. Like that covers the whole gamut of the art of allowing almost. And in that joy, life is good. Life is really good. And we're in our power because we feel good and we're taking good care of ourselves.
And I think that's, to bring it all full circle, hopefully, I love that you mentioned that, because to me, that is what you just said, like someone hearing what you just said would be a great example for me. If I didn't know any of this stuff and I was just watching this conversation between us, that would be a great example for me of an opportunity from the universe. And I remember being a coaching client and having these discussions where I would say something like, I really want this thing, but I'm frustrated because it hasn't shown up yet. And your suggestion would be, after we created a list of things like that I did when I was a little kid and I stopped doing, your suggestion would be, for example, go outside and throw the baseball up in the air and catch it with your glove, like you did when you were a little boy. And for me, at first that didn't make any sense, because it's like, if I'm trying to manifest a car, how the heck is tossing a baseball in my backyard gonna bring that?
Right? Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, that's the nature of spiritual opportunity versus this sort of ego, I'm going to create my opportunity is sort of thing. It's like, and the challenge for me in that moment, and that's sort of, I think this is sort of where this all comes together in what you're talking about, because the challenge for me in that moment was to take the thought that would pop up always, playing ball in the backyard is not going to get me a car, and letting go of that and allowing myself to just trust that in this moment, the universe is trying to guide me on my path towards what my heart desires. And what I'm being offered is the opportunity to go out and play ball in the yard.
And so how did it feel?
My leap of faith in that scenario is, even though it's kind of like from a purely logical, like intellectual, practical, physical world standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. Like, go out and play ball and that'll help me on my path to the car. It's letting go of that kind of negative doubt thought, which is, like somewhat provable in the physical world, but just let go of that and have faith that that's the opportunity that the universe is giving me to get closer to that thing that I want. It's to get joy from something that gives me joy.
Yeah. And the more we do that, the more the path of least resistance, the more we reach for the thing that feels best in this moment. We're enjoying ourselves, our health improves, our emotional well-being improves, our life improves. And then we do that time and time again. Eventually we're walking with a friend and they say, I know this person who is da 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 da, or whatever, the opportunity pops up. And then we're like, we're inspired to ask more questions about it, get more information, whatever. I mean, we all have, every single person, you, myself, everyone listening and watching this has story after story of things where we were doing such and such, we wanted such and such, and then such and such happened. And it's like
weird coincidences. That's
and that's spirit. That's how spirit works with us. And and it's this co-creation, this partnership. We're never alone. We never have been. We never will be. And there are forces working on our behalf that we just don't even know about.
That's great.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome. So hence the power and joy. Transformational life coaching.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having this talk with me.
This was fun.
I hope this, someone will get something out of this by watching it or listening to it. I know for me, it was, these are all concepts I understand coming into this conversation, but I think every conversation I have deepens my understanding and helps pave those roads in my mind of like the real way that it works for people. So
yes, fun to talk about it.
Do you want to give the web address that people can
www.powerinjoy.com, and or you can Google Power and Joy Transformational Life Coaching and I'll pop up.
Okay.
And I have a free 30-minute discovery session where you can talk about what it is you want. Okay. See if we're a fit.
And you can reach me at my website, collinworster.com, COLLINWORSTER.com.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time.